I'm Kathryn Montoya, and this is going to be my final project comparing two characters. I'll be comparing Montoya Ibrahim's main character Momo, as well as The Edge of 17 main character Nadine. Although they come from two very different cultures and different backgrounds, they both take paths towards self-discovery and finding genuine connections, revealing how adolescence kind of just transcends different cultures and different times all around the world. So a brief synopsis on Edge of 17. It's about Nadine here, who is a teenage girl living in America who has never really fit into school, only has one best friend, and she has to suffer the loss of her father passing, who was her one mentor kind of figure, and she just kind of has to navigate growing up, knowing that her best friend starts a relationship with her brother, whom she's never really had a great relationship with, and she's just got to learn this whole adolescence thing. So let's get started. So my first point is going to be on the two characters' initial isolation and emotional struggles. So in Momo's case, it's already known that there's a lot of emotional neglect in his household. His father is not very emotionally present, his mother is not very present either, and he's constantly compared to this sibling, and it makes him just feel this sense of that he's not enough, that he's not a good son. He's also forced into this adult role where he has to raise himself, and he's not in school. So what he's not learning from a mother figure or a father figure or an older sibling figure, he's not even learning in a school setting. He's constantly seeking this kind of affection in all the wrong places. As it's seen in the beginning of the movie, an experience with a sex worker in his community, it shows that he just doesn't have a grasp on the real consequences and the real meaning behind these more mature concepts. And he's also constantly trying to find that warmth and that guidance from his father, which unfortunately he will not be finding. In the case of Nadine and Edge of 17, it's very similar to Momo. They both have this absence of a father figure. But for Nadine, it's because her father has passed away. That was really her best friend. She doesn't have that mentor figure even in her mother, because her mother also struggles to understand Nadine and to find this level ground. Similar to Momo, because Momo doesn't really have that mother figure either in his life. And both characters, Momo and Nadine, are compared to an older brother sibling, which I found was really interesting, which weighs on her self-esteem just as much as it does for Momo. She also has a habit of self-sabotaging herself. She constantly excuses her offensiveness and her rudeness, and pushes it onto other people because of her grief. She avoids expressing herself and her emotions healthily, and she refuses to let others in. As for how this relates to Momo, also hides his emotions because he doesn't know how to express them. He's very young, and no one has taught him how to let out his feelings healthily, and therefore he finds or tries to find ways to express himself in not so appropriate ways. She is an outsider at school. This causes her to have a lot of low self-esteem, like Momo, and she seeks unhealthy relationships that are unrealistic, and she forms this desire simply because she has this stereotype in her mind. And this is like Momo in the sense that he doesn't have a very good sense of which relationships he should be trying to integrate himself into. For my second point, I'm going to be going over the relationships of both these characters, how they are affected and affect their development. So for both Momo and Nadine, they kind of go through these arcs of before their self-discovery, during their self-discovery, and after their self-discovery. Before they discovered themselves, they were going through these distant but yearning kind of phases of wanting to find that warmth. For Momo, it's through his father. For Nadine, it's through her family and through Krista. For Momo, with his community, he's trying to find it in those sex workers, which he cannot. And for Nadine, she's trying to find it through her classmates and her crush. But they're very much over-romanticized thoughts of relationships that are not very accurate to what they would be in real life. During their self-discovery, they are both trying to fight so hard for finding these connections that will enrich them and fulfill them the way that previous relationships don't. For Momo, he starts to find friendships in Montoya Ibrahim and his community, familial kind of connection to him and looking out for him, teaching him about society. For Nadine, she shuts out her family, shuts out Krista, but she starts to find these truths of the world through her own experiences, reaching out to different classmates, different friends that she makes, and even to her crush, which doesn't really go well but teaches her a very valuable lesson. And finally, after their self-discovery, they learn which relationships they should keep and which ones help them to become better people. He finds that enrichment and that love and that warmth through Montoya Ibrahim and his community, And for Nadine, she finally lets in her family, lets in Krista, and starts to establish these new relationships she's found during that experimental period, letting go of the ones that didn't really work out for her. For my third and final point, I'll be talking about Momo and Nadine's paths towards self-discovery and just figuring out all this adolescent stuff. For Momo, he finally learns Ibrahim's philosophy that happiness is in the mind. It's not something that you need to pry out of other people, especially if they're not equipped for it. Similar with Nadine, she acknowledges that she had some faults in the hurt that other people put onto her. And, she reaches out to those people and mends those relationships while also finding new relationships that really do work for her. For Momo, he also expands his mindset by seeing different religions, by seeing different cultures, by overall just being exposed to the real world, which is similar to Nadine through meeting new people instead of just being with Krista, instead of just feeling like she's the victim in everything that she does. And lastly, for Momo, he takes responsibility by the end of the movie when he takes over the shop and inherits it, and I found that really sweet. Same with Nadine, how she finally lets go of those bad relationships that she only formed through her rose-tinted glasses on, and she lets in the good people in her life that were always there, like her brother, seen in this last final moment of the movie. She kind of just lets go of all her pride and says, "I'm sorry," and so does her brother. And I also want to take this time to cite one of the articles from a scholarly website I used, entitled Semiotic Analysis and Personality of the Main Character in the Film Lady Bird and the Age of 17. As you can see here, pictured in Nadine's body language, the journal talks about how body language also is a clear indicator of what stage of development you're in. So as you can see, Nadine is very much out, explosive through her body, and that's an indicator of someone that hasn't gone through mental maturity yet. Here is a picture of her by the end of the film where she is embracing her brother, which was also discussed in the journal, that physical interaction with other people that is reciprocated and a means of affection for both parties is a sign of emotional maturity. So in conclusion, I hope you really enjoyed my project. I loved how both these movies have very realistic and raw kinds of themes that are explored, and I think it's kind of rare in movies nowadays. So I really appreciated seeing it in Momo and Nadine, and how their similarities really just transcend cultures and show that adolescence is a journey that everyone goes through no matter where they are in the world. Thank you.